All right, good day and welcome to Commerce Today. My name's Darren, and as always, here is Josh with Commerce Today, giving you the insights you need for your merchant site
For
and
your commerce today.
for your commerce today, as opposed to yesterday or tomorrow. Those are just right out. And like today, this isn't the price is right. This is the price is wrong. What do you do? What do you do when that happens on your website? Josh, I can't wait for this. It's going to be fun because you have a great story to tell. So tee us up.
Yeah, this is a great one. So the news reported just a couple of days ago that Cartier had a nice pair of $14,000 earrings listed on their website for $14. Someone purchased said earrings. Actually, he was smart enough. He purchased two pair.
Exactly.
And it was a guy that lives in Mexico, and under Mexican law and the Mexican consumer finance protection things, they had to honor that. They had to ship him two pairs of very nice gold diamond earrings. He paid $28, or the equivalent of $28, for $28,000 worth of products.
Wow. That is that's amazing. So, and unfortunately, it's never happened to me because as we were talking earlier, I've been wanting a Corvette, and I'd pay $70 for a Corvette. But anyway, back to Cartier and this story. Josh, what do you think kind of happened from a technical standpoint, or what are the mechanics that cause something to
Yeah, and that's exactly why I wanted to talk about this today, because so many people, I feel like when they're scaling their e-commerce site, there's these little gotchas that, well, I guess they're not very little. They can be $28,000 gotchas, but there's these gotchas in your technical infrastructure that people don't really like to think about. It's not the fun, pretty part of e-commerce, but it's so important. And in this case, I believe it was a currency conversion error, and specifically, they were listed at 237 pesos. They were supposed to be listed at 237,000 pesos. That really feels like somewhere in the currency conversion process, there was an error. I don't know if it was an algorithmic error or a human error, but someone made an error, dropped 3 zeros, and now we have a rather large loss for that business. And I see this, unfortunately, I've seen this before, either with currency conversion or just with automated pricing updates. I've actually seen back a few years ago when algorithmic pricing got big for third-party sellers on Amazon, different people, their automatic pricing update system would basically be like, I'm going to go to the lowest price minus a penny. But then someone else's system would say, I'm going to go to the lowest price minus a penny. And you would watch the prices just drop by 1 cent, 2 cents, 3 cents, 4 cents until they were selling it at a loss because these systems, they either didn't have the profitability data baked in or they just weren't even checking it.
Right. They didn't put any thresholds in for it to stop at some point. There is a low bar in this. A question around the technical, as you're saying, on currency conversion. Do we know if someone from, say, Europe as opposed to Mexico or even the United States would have looked at it? Do you think that the currency would have been wrong there too? Or was it only happened to be for the Mexican currency?
Apparently it was the U.S. site, and so it was all based on U.S. dollars. So the U.S. price was correct in U.S. dollars, but then the exchange rates that it was calculating, so for instance in Mexico, was incorrect. And that's something that, again, kind of behind the scenes, a lot of people don't realize is that e-commerce sites typically, even those that support multiple currencies, they will ask you to define what is your base currency or your main currency. And in this case, this site was set to the US, and it was then converting into other currencies. So if it had been the European site and converting and using a base currency of the euro, then maybe here in the U.S. we could have gotten a deal after all. So,
Or it'd have been $25,000 as opposed to 14. So,
yeah.
Could go either way. Well, let me ask you this: as we look at kind of the broader impact, what are some of maybe the repercussions from customer service and the brand and all of that? Cartier is a high-end brand for sure.
Yeah, and that was the interesting thing, because when I saw this news article, the first thing I thought of is every e-commerce website has a pricing disclaimer saying, hey, in the event of a pricing error, we'll cancel your order. And that's just what people do. Now, is that the best thing for your brand? It depends. If you're a brand that's known for having excellent customer service and you repeatedly have pricing errors and you keep canceling the orders, it's probably not going to be good for your brand. But from a legal standpoint, that's where it gets real interesting. Because I believe if this had been in the U.S., chances are they would have gotten away with just canceling the order.
Right.
Because this was in Mexico and because they have different laws there, similar in some cases to some of the things the EU does, this customer was basically able to push the issue and say, no, 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 no. I have a confirmed order and a payment stating that for this dollar amount or this peso amount, you're going to give me these products. I expect it. And he was able to get that enforced. And it is interesting from a customer service standpoint. Apparently, the first thing they did was reach out to him and say, you know what? We want to celebrate with you this great deal that you found with our error. We will send you a very nice bottle of champagne if you will just cancel this order.
Right. Well, yeah. Apparently the champagne didn't work, and I'm not sure how much the bottle of champagne was, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't $14,000.
Probably not. And something that's interesting to me is not to get too political, but as we look at the differences in the laws between the countries, there's also differences in the laws between the states. And I don't think California is there yet, but I could see a law like this or a regulatory framework like this in California around pricing accuracy. I think that would probably be one of the first states that would do it. And so you really have to be aware of where are you selling and what are the laws and the expectations in those areas. And it's not always just, am I selling to Europe? Am I selling to Mexico? It could be, am I selling to California?
Wow. Yeah. It is almost like another country at times. Well, okay, as we kind of went through some of the broader impacts that are out there, how do we learn from some of these mistakes and move forward? And what are the merchants that are listening today, what can they do to mitigate this?
Yeah, so I mentioned the pricing updates that I've seen on Amazon, and I've also seen errors like this with currency conversions before. The other thing that no one ever expects or thinks about, because I think we don't think about shipping as often as we ought to, is shipping quotes. And basically anything that impacts the total cost of a customer's cart, you really got to be careful with. And I have seen cases where even recently the FedEx API went down. And most platforms are better about this now, but previously when that would happen, I've seen opportunities where you can go and you can get express FedEx priority overnight shipping for free because the site wasn't handling the fact that the FedEx API was down correctly. And that one is an easy fix. So our friends over at Shipper HQ, if you're using Shipper HQ and the platform that you're pulling shipping rates from goes down, they actually have backup rates that they insert. And that is one really good way to mitigate things like this. So same thing with currency conversion. You need to know, okay, if my currency conversion API provider goes down, do I have a second provider already lined up? Does my site automatically switch to it? Do I just halt any orders that are in different currencies? You have to have those sort of fail-safes or checks in place.
Well, that's always good to have, no matter what you're doing. But I would not have thought of having a backup necessarily for shipping. I think that's a great idea, and to be able to pull from. So what are some other solutions around just kind of overall the e-commerce stability of all of this?
Yeah, I actually been working on a article about this issue, and I have a post that's going to go up on LinkedIn on Monday talking about it. And it's interesting as I was researching and thinking about it, something I didn't put in the notes yet is our friends at New Relic that you actually did an episode with one of our colleagues last week about. Tools like New Relic can be a really good way to detect things like this, simply by having some type of error monitoring and reporting and alerting. Because I suspect somewhere in the code an error was thrown saying we're about to give away $28,000 worth of merchandise, but it was probably logged somewhere that no one ever looked at and no one ever saw. So tools like New Relic, different log aggregation services, things like that, having ways that you are monitoring your site more proactively for errors can really help, not only with issues like this, but with anything that's going to negatively impact the customer experience. And
the other piece of that, even from the New Relic side, is the performance and how that can be monitored even in some of these cases, because we know even the old, I say old, I mean, I know it still happens, the denial of service, those kinds of things, that when performance goes down or when you have that can also cause some of these APIs, some of these other things to just either no longer work or they work improperly.
Yeah. And even knowing how long it's taking your different API providers to respond. There's definitely USPS versus UPS versus FedEx kind of have different service levels for how quick they return those rates. Currency providers can vary a lot. Some of the sites out there I've seen that are experimenting with cryptocurrency payments, when they want to calculate out cryptocurrency values, I mean, that's all over the place. And so being able to monitor and get an alert that says, hey, this API call usually takes, a split second and now it's taking multiple seconds, is really important. Especially, we look so much at the performance of the kind of the front end of the user experience, but lots of times people aren't performance testing their checkouts.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest impact on checkout performance is going to be those integrations and those APIs.
So what would be some, I guess, best practices to look at around, let's say, first and foremost, avoiding the pricing issue? And then a follow-on to that question, as I was thinking about all this, is it's great to have alerts, but it's kind of like if a tree falls over in the forest and nobody's there to hear it, does it actually make any noise? So if there's an alert, but nobody ever sees it, was there really a problem?
And now you're actually reading over my shoulder, I think, of that guide I'm going to release on Monday. I think it's really important on the policy side to know, where do those alerts go? Like, let's say an alert went to someone at Cartier and said, hey, about to sell some earrings at a $28,000 loss. What do we do? Do you have someone that can receive that alert and have the authority to either disable a product on production or to disable a specific currency or country on production? Because I'm guessing most of the retailers out there that are listening don't have that. That maybe somebody gets the alert, but they have to send an email, they have to make a call, they have to get permission. And I think it's really important to talk about these things in advance and kind of have a contingency plan of, if these things behave unexpectedly on our site, these people will be notified about them within a certain number of minutes, and they're given the authority to make a decision and make a change on the production site.
And that's a really important distinction, Josh. And as you were saying that, one of the things I was thinking of is certain companies, even Cartier's high end, and I don't know how large they are. They may be monumental, but I'm kind of guessing that they're not a Walmart sized type of Fortune 5 company, if you will. So they may not have the ability to have somebody constantly monitoring and watching this. So it could be a third party, they'd reach out. But the key you brought up was they have to have the authority to make a decision and do something. And that's where I think a lot of times, many times the ball is dropped. If you go back and root cause analysis this situation, that maybe somebody saw it, they didn't have the authority, and by the time something could be done, $28,000 worth of earrings were at least in the books.
Yeah, exactly. And I think so often we get so excited about technical solutions and how we can purchase this software, implement this system, and we forget that at the end of the day, at least for now, people have to be involved, and you have to give those people guidelines and the authority to take the right actions.
I know you're bummed by that. AI is taking over everything. I know it.
Hey, I didn't say it yet. So I was going to try not to mention AI for an episode, but now that you mention it.
Now that I opened it up.
It's interesting because, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, even I think going back 20 years ago, kind of when I was starting in e-commerce, there were already ways that people would use kind of rule-based systems of, hey, if I have an order that is way above or way below my average order value, flag it. We even actually built a module at Creativity for Magento that would do that would actually move the order into a flag status with certain rules. That works. That still works. You don't have to go for super fancy AI solutions. However, it is interesting, the world we're in now with AI. There is the possibility of, you could have an AI, and I think even some of the open source free AI models that you could run on your server could do this. Just monitor carts. As people are adding things to carts, just monitor them and say, if anything looks weird, alert us. And I think this could have been caught, again, depending on, did they have a person that would receive the alert and act in time, but this could have been caught when he added it to the cart. AI could have said, here's a product that has diamond and gold in the title, and yet it's $14. This doesn't seem right. Let's throw up an error. Let's pause this. Let's alert this somehow so that someone could fix it before he actually completed checkout.
Definitely would have made a huge difference in this scenario. Well, as we kind of wrap this episode together, I wanted to ask you, maybe normally I kind of summarize some of the key points, but I wanted to ask you maybe what are the key takeaways that you'd want to have merchants walk away from if they heard nothing else? What would those be for this episode?
I think for this, I've talked a lot about pricing. I think this applies just as much to inventory. It's not as, well, it can be as costly, but it's just as frustrating for a customer to order something that you promise them is in stock and then you have to cancel the order because it's out of stock. So making sure that all your systems that are touching pricing, inventory, everything related to getting the right product to the right customer at the right price, you really need to think through those more than you probably have, and you need to have some checks and balances on them. And then again, you need to have someone that receives an alert if something's off and has the authority to take some sort of action. And I think that you put all that together and you can provide a lot better user experience, and you can, not give away $28,000 worth of fine jewelry.
Yeah, not have your board of directors or investors coming after you saying, "Why are you giving away the farm?"
Exactly.
Well, as always, we appreciate you being here to join us for Commerce today. Definitely want to invite you to share your experiences. If you've had an experience like this, we would love to hear about it. Love to take that information. How can we use it? How can we help improve both your experience online as well as anyone else's experiences online? Definitely come find us on LinkedIn. And Josh, your LinkedIn, as always.
Yep, and I have some fun stuff coming out on LinkedIn. I already mentioned kind of that guide and those 7 steps to look at to prevent this from happening. That goes up next Monday. Actually, tomorrow as we live stream this, I have a new checklist around site stability. Basically, when you have big sales, especially new product launches, things like that, what you need to be doing to make sure your site is secure, stable, performant. And that one is completely ungated. It will just be out on my LinkedIn profile for everyone to enjoy. So definitely check that out.
So definitely find Joshua Warren on LinkedIn. We'll have it in the show notes here as always, but definitely find Joshua Warren on LinkedIn so that you can find those guides. Well, again, thank you so much for joining us today for Commerce Today. Look forward to catching you next time. Until then, take care.